All right, let's talk about some extra special things. So these are going to be some tools that you'll probably be mad that I didn't already tell you about because these are more expansive tools. Like these are going to do bigger things with less work. But if I show you these tools first, then you tend to want to go to them first, which is fine, but you might not be as good at using all the other little tools that you have to use next. So my apologies in advance if you get mad. But here we go. Before we hit those tools, let's talk about how can we make something look like it belongs in the scene more. So for instance, I've got my gremlin here, but I'd like for him to kind of hide behind the tree a little bit. Or maybe like his arm would be behind the tree, let's say. Well, if his arm's going to be behind the tree, I need part of this tree to be on a higher layer, but I can't do that because it would put the whole tree in front of the gremlin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a section of the tree and put it on its own layer. I've turned off all my layers. I'm clicked on my background layer, and then I'm going to select this little part of the tree. Now you could use whatever you want. I'll just go to the old, I'll use the magnetic. Let's try the magnetic here. So I'll just select, let's say here. Actually don't know how much of him I want to be behind the tree and how much to be in front. It's a good thought here. Well, we'll just do this part and see if I hate it or not. We all know it's not forever, right? Okay, so there. Okay, this is a weird chunk of tree, but let's say this is the little chunk of tree. Let's see where he's standing at. Okay, so that'll be not great, but that's okay. Let's go to quick mask mode, right? Let's decide what part am I going to paint in up there. So I'll switch this to white. Let's say I want a little bit more here because I want his arm to look like it's behind the tree. So I need it to clear there, right? And I can turn off my gremlin here if I need to so I can kind of see better what's going on. But you're probably also going to want to turn him on so you can see. So let's say I want his arm to go behind there, but I want his legs to stay in front. So I don't want to have this part back here in front of him. Oops. So let me switch the colors, and let's say I don't want that part of the tree. I don't want it to mess with him over here, right? Just the arm part. Okay. Now it's a little bit laggy right now. So you know if you're doing it, it might be a little slow at the moment. All right, so this is a little chunk of tree. Okay, let's turn this off. I want this little chunk to be on its own layer. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go here to copy. Okay? And then we're going to go to edit and paste. And it pasted it right in the exact same spot. See? Right there. All right. Now I'm going to name it trunk for the tree trunk. And then I'm going to take my gremlin and I'm going to put the trunk above the gremlin. There we go. And now his little arm's kind of going around the back of the tree. Now, I don't have the rest of the tree here. So, like, I had to kind of commit to that from the beginning. So if I feel like it's not perfect, then I can't move the trunk because it has to stay in that spot. But I can move my gremlin. And so I could say, well, you know, maybe if we scoot him down a little bit more, it looks better. Yeah, see, that looks better. That kind of looks more like his arms going through the tree and behind, right? So just remember, if you want to take a chunk, you just copy paste it and you can put it in there. Now in Photoshop, it's a little bit easier to do. You can still just copy paste. So I could come in here, make sure you're on your background layer. I could choose whatever tool I want. Let's say his arm's going to go through here, so this will be fine. We'll just go here. That'll be enough. Okay, that part. Now, in Photoshop, you can right-click, and it has a very cool thing. Instead of going copy-paste, you can go to Layer via Copy, which means, hey, put that on a layer by making a copy, which basically means copy-paste. Okay, I'm going to click Layer via Copy. There it is. I'm going to name my layer Trunk. And then, bam, we're good. I'm going to move my trunk to above my gremlin. I got to go one more here. And there we go. And now his little arm's going through there. Did I? Oops. Don't ever move those. By the way, that's probably a good idea here to hit the lock button once you put something in like that so you don't accidentally grab it like I did. All right, there we go. I need to put him in there a little better. There we go. All right, there. And so now it kind of looks like, I wish his hand came out the other side. But I didn't bring in enough tree to do that. So I'd probably redo that. I don't like the way that looks. But anyway, but you get the gist of it. So you can go through, again, in Photoshop, if you're on that original layer, just right-click, Layer via Copy, or you could just do it the other way. Just copy, paste, and it puts it on a new layer, and then it will be in there. However, just be sure that you don't move it. It needs to stay in its spot. That's kind of a big deal. Okay, now let's look at a couple of additional items. So I'm going to click File and Place, and I'm going to place, I'm in Photoshop right now, my hot air balloon from earlier. I'm going to bring it in. So now I want to show you the Quick Selection tool. It's also known as the Quick Selection brush. It looks like a paintbrush with a little thing around it with marching ants by it. It's kind of like the magic wand, but on steroids. Like basically, as you paint, it doesn't just paint where a brush does. It tries to like read your mind, kind of like how the magnetic lasso reads your mind, and it tries to jump out there farther. Okay, now let me turn off this trunk so we're not looking at it. All right, so let me make this brush bigger. Okay, see how big my brush is? That's kind of important. All right, I'm just going to click my mouse and drag down just a little bit, okay? I'm not going to go actually all the way, just a little bit. There. See how that did? That jumped and grabbed a bunch of that? All right, now I'm going to go up here where I didn't get it all, and I'm going to drag this away a little bit. Here we go. Okay, see that got a lot of it? And then same thing, kind of go here until you get most of those out there. See, it jumped all the way down. I didn't make my brush little to get that tip-top part, and it actually got it. Now it's having trouble at the top because the sky is blue and it's not really sure what to do with that part. And then down here at the bottom, I'd have to use a smaller brush because it can't be bigger than the thing. And then notice, see, it kind of just grabbed the whole little blob. I just kind of painted over it a little bit. So your Quick Selection brush is a fast brush. It's a good one to use if you've got something that maybe you would normally use your magnetic lasso for. So a lot of people like to go with the Quick Selection brush. Okay, now I'm going to Control D here. The other thing that you can do is, in Photoshop up here, on the options bar, when you're on Quick Selection, is Select Subject. You can click Select Subject, and then wait a minute, and it takes a little bit, and then bam, it just tries to guess for you. And it did pretty good. Look at that. I didn't even really work on that, right? It did pretty good. Now let's look in Photopea. We do have a similar thing. Let me go ahead and File, and I'm going to place that hot air balloon again. And let me zoom out just a little bit so you can see what's going on. All right, so Quick Selection brush right here. Okay, same thing. I'm just going to take my mouse. In here, for whatever reason, it makes us rasterize in Photopea and it doesn't in Photoshop. That's fine. Just say okay. All right, here I go. I'm just dragging. Oh, look, I drug and it went all the way down there just right immediately. But when I went to click up there, it just took the whole thing over. That's the one bad thing. You don't want to go crazy dragging your brush because if you go too crazy, it's going to go so far that when you back up, you're going to lose almost everything when you back up in your history to undo. All right, let me try a little bit of a bigger brush, and we'll try this again. Oh, it's really having trouble with this top part, but that's okay. We have a minus on Quick Selection. Or, while I'm on plus, just like with the other tools, I can hold down the Alt key. See how I'm holding down the Alt key and that's switching to minus? So right now I'm holding down the Alt key, and I just clicked one time. And then it took... There we go. See, that did better. And then that same thing, I can come down here to the bottom part, use a smaller brush, and just run over it. Oops, I ran over it too much, and we went too far. So undo. I'll try again. Oh, undo. I may need to use even smaller brush. I really should zoom up, but I'm not zooming up. So, all right, so you can see this one's being a little bit fussy for me. Again, yeah, it's just not going to go. It doesn't like this part of the image down here. So I would have to use a different selection tool. But my Quick Selection brush would get me a good start on this one, okay? Now, we don't have a Select Subject button up here like in Photoshop, but let me Control D. Hidden underneath here, we have an Object Selection. Now, so it's basically a button of its own in Photopea. So instead of Subject Select button up there, we have Object Selection. So I can click on Object Selection, and then I'm just going to draw a box, and I'm going to try not to get the sky. I'm going to try to draw a box around basically where the balloon is. You want to have it right within the selection. See, it's got a big plus sign on it, and I'm just going to let go. And there you go. And so it tried to select subject. Again, it really doesn't know what to do with this bottom part, and it struggled up here with the blue at the top. But no big deal, right? We know we can go into quick mask mode. We can take a paintbrush, and we can just paint in these areas up here that didn't work, right? Now, definitely, if you don't have a mouse and you're trying to use a Chromebook, you need a mouse. Don't be doing this without a mouse. Okay, so let's say that's pretty good. I can't really tell because I really should be zoomed up more. I'm going to go out of quick mask mode. And then I've got this bottom part. And just like before, I could take my magnetic lasso, or I might just take a plain old lasso on plus, and I just kind of add this little part in because it's just a little bitty teeny part, and whenever we zoom out, you're not going to be able to see most of it anyway, so it isn't going to matter. All right, there we go. Again, I could take a look at it on quick mask. If I like it, I could then add my layer mask, and voila. There we go. Oops. I pressed Control T again. Control Alt T. I always forget. In Photopea, it's Control Alt T. Okay, so there we go. We'll rotate it a little bit like he's having a good time. All right, so that's that one. Now, there is another tool. I'm actually going to use the background just because Photopea actually does a pretty good job on this one, so it's kind of fun. I'm going to go back and turn all of these things off and just come to the background layer. And I'm going to make a copy of the background. So I'm going to duplicate the background layer. So I have two of them, and I'll turn off the bottom one. I'll do the same thing in Photoshop, and I'll use that select subject one in Photoshop. So, well, I need to turn all these off. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate this layer. I'm going to click out here, duplicate layer. Okay, and I'll turn off the bottom one. Okay, so here, let's try select subject. Give it a minute. Hopefully it can find the tree. There it is. And then we can look at it and you can see there, it selected mostly the tree. Like, it's not too bad. It didn't knock out all these little pieces between the branches, but you know, it's not awful. I could add my layer mask and then we actually have a tree that's cut out. Okay. Now let's go to Photopea. Photopea has a thing called, and I got to be on my selection tools to get there, called Magic Cut. Now you have to have something that definitely, you know, it's got some background to it. But if I click Magic Cut in here, it actually like tries, it kind of thinks that it knows that it's a tree or something. Like, look at that, there's a tree over here. I've never understood that. There's a tree over here, but look at the preview. It basically says, hey, here you go, I cut all this out for you. I even kept your ground at the bottom, and I can say, okay, cool, new layer. Now let's put it on a mask, and I'll hit okay, and then there we go. I have my tree cut off mostly of the background. Again, there's still pieces in between here, so it's not perfect. I wouldn't want to put it on a black background because it's not night back there. But that tool works pretty good. So that's a nice little cheaty thing that you can use in Photopea. And you can do that too with placed images. So let's say I take my hot air balloon. Let's see how it does with the hot air balloon. I'm going to right click on that layer with a selection tool. You got to be on a selection tool. You can't be on the move tool. And I'm going to go to Magic Cut, and then it comes in here, and then bam, check that out. Pretty good. Now see, it's missing some stuff. It's not perfect. It's not perfect. There's still some stuff over there that's missing. But I'm going to put it out on a mask, and then I can come out here and fix those other areas, just like always, right? Take my paintbrush and use a white paintbrush to paint in the areas that are missing. But I had a good start, right? It gave me a good starting point to go on here. And then I didn't have to do all of that work. Yeah, see, are you mad? You're mad, aren't you? Anyway, all right, so lots of fun stuff here in this chapter. So what I hope that you'll do is, first off, I taught you the quick selection brush. That's in Photoshop and Photopea. Okay, then in Photopea, we looked at the object selection tool. And in Photoshop, if we're on the quick selection tool, we have the select subject tool. They do similar things. And then the select subject is pretty good, but Photopea kind of has an extra little thing, which is the Magic Cut. And you right click and Magic Cut, and you can try to cut out something. So if you had like a person that has hair is kind of hard to deal with in Photoshop and Photopea. That's going to be kind of your go-to for that sort of thing. It won't be perfect. You'll have to touch it up, but it's a good starting point. All right, time for you to take time to play. So have some fun playing with these new selection tools.